João Américo's self-perception had reached stratospheric levels. In his mind, he wasn't just a talented student, he was a force of nature, an unacknowledged genius destined to reshape the very fabric of reality. The school halls were his personal palace, the classrooms his throne rooms, and his fellow students mere subjects in his grand design. He saw himself as a modern-day emperor, his brilliance an undeniable decree, and his opinions the only truths that mattered. What he didn't see, what he actively refused to acknowledge, was the stark contrast between his imagined power and the reality of his circumstances. While he obsessed over stock market gains and the hypothetical Américo prize, his family struggled to make ends meet. His parents, working multiple jobs for paltry wages, had no health insurance, relying on a public healthcare system crippled by years of austerity policies. His extended family, eking out a living from tips and precarious informal jobs, had never even dreamed of access to the expensive elite universities that were the only ones that met his intellectual standards. João was utterly oblivious to their struggles. His meritocratic worldview, so meticulously crafted to justify his own arrogance, had blinded him to the profound socio-economic disparities that shaped his own life. The constant fear he harbored that everyone was out to get him became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Each perceived slight, each critical comment was interpreted as proof of a conspiracy, further fueling his paranoia and hardening his heart. His paranoia and arrogance were feeding each other in a toxic cycle. The more conspiracy theories he concocted, the more arrogant he became. The more arrogant he became, the more his peers actively disliked him, which of course further fueled his paranoid theories. This feedback loop spiraled, solidifying his belief that he was surrounded by envious adversaries, all secretly plotting to dismantle his exceptional existence. He would often look at his classmates, his gaze filled with suspicion. He interpreted casual glances as veiled threats, murmurs as derogatory insults, and any form of interaction as an attempt to take advantage of his genius. Unbeknownst to him, however, his paranoia was not entirely unfounded, it was just misplaced. In the shadows of the school, a group of students tired of his endless contempt, his narcissistic pronouncements, and his blatant disregard for others were indeed plotting. They weren't driven by envy or a thirst for personal gain, but by the sheer frustration of dealing with his insufferable behavior. They were quietly observing him, collecting data and making observations as it would be the method of a proper scientist. They were students who had felt the edge of his dismissive remarks, the sting of his condescending gaze. They were those who truly believed in teamwork and solidarity. Led by Maria, the girl he had so easily dismissed, this clandestine group had formed in the school's forgotten corners. Maria had done her research, and they learned about the impact of neurochemicals on behavior and the immune system, and they were determined to find a way to shift his personality, to challenge the core of his sociopathic beliefs. They decided that the best way to stop him would be to change him. They were developing a plan that was risky, unorthodox, and, quite frankly, desperate to bring down João Américo and his unbearable reign. They hoped that in doing so, they could bring back to their school the human factor that he had done his best to extinguish. The group, now calling themselves the Catalysts, had established a makeshift laboratory in the old janitor's closet, a space forgotten by the school administration. They were not scientists, not in the traditional sense, but they were driven by a common purpose: to alter João Américo's toxic personality. They had pooled their knowledge, their resources, and their resentment into this desperate endeavor. Their plan was audacious, bordering on reckless. They aimed to develop a compound that would subtly alter João's immune system, which, as Maria had discovered in her research, was intricately linked to the neuroendocrine system. Their working hypothesis was that this manipulation could, theoretically, modulate his behavior, dampen his arrogance, and perhaps, just perhaps, allow a sliver of empathy to emerge. The group worked secretly, fueled by a combination of scientific curiosity and a deep-seated desire for justice, fueled by their belief in change. They used discarded lab supplies, online tutorials, and knowledge from their science classes, carefully navigating the ethical complexities of their project. Maria, driven by a quiet determination, became their de facto leader, her meticulous approach a counterbalance to the raw emotions that fueled the group's mission. They were aware of the potential risks. Altering the human immune system could have unforeseen consequences, but they felt they had no choice. Joao's behavior was becoming increasingly intolerable. They knew they were walking a dangerous path, blurring the line between science and vigilante justice. But they felt it was a necessary measure. To them, they were doing it for the greater good of their school community. They reasoned if his paranoia was a product of an unchecked, self-serving nature, it was necessary to intervene at its core to change it. "We need to fix him," Maria would say, her eyes reflecting both determination and a hint of unease. Their meetings were clandestine, held in hushed tones in between classes or in the dead of night. The old janitor's closet, once a symbol of neglect, had become their secret headquarters, their center of quiet rebellion against the tyranny of Joao Americo's ego. Their progress was slow and fraught with challenges, but the sense of camaraderie, the shared purpose, kept them going. They were a team, united against a common adversary, proving the power of collective action. The irony was, Joao, who so vehemently disdained collaboration, was, ironically, the catalyst of their formation and unity. He had created the monster that might destroy him. The catalysts were drawing closer to finalizing their compound, their small lab becoming more complex, more professional, more determined as their experiments reached their conclusion. They had no idea of what the consequences would be, but they were ready to face the unknown in the hope of freeing themselves from the suffocating cloud of Joao Americo's insufferable personality. Their project, born from a place of shared frustration, was about to change the course of their lives and without doubt would be a turning point in Joao's story.